what's happening in the football department? Anything else, Wildcard? What's cracking in that sports brain of yours and what you're covering?
Well, it's probably Wellington Phoenix matters, to be honest. I mean, the women's premiership started this weekend, and I would have liked to have been if I had more time, I would have liked to write about it, but it's hard to watch all the games and get around amongst everything else. So, we'll see how the week goes. But the Wellington Phoenix have certainly been busy, and they've there was a long time where we didn't have anything happening from the Phoenix, and it was frustrating, but it was also understandable. There was the collective bargaining agreement had to be done, and there was they were basically handcuffed by that. They didn't know when the season was going to start and what that would mean in terms of where they could play games and where they could be, all those kind of things. But there was stuff going on behind the scenes, just couldn't formalize and publicize and all those kind of stuff. So what ended up happening is once everything got sort of sorted and they announced we're going to have to start the season for the first couple months at least. In New South Wales, we could be away 6 or 7 months, basically, living in Australia if it works that way, which I think is slightly overblown, to be honest. Chris Wood is away from New Zealand for 12 months of the year, pretty much. He lives in England now because of his football career. This is sort of a thing that professional footballers, professional sportsmen in general, but in particular footballers do. It's different for the Phoenix, obviously, when it's the only professional club in the country. So there is that factor of a lot of players will sign there because of that, because it means they get to stay in New Zealand and play professionally. But it is an enormous sacrifice and an enormous undertaking, but it's not like it's something the players wouldn't be keen to do, I suppose, is the point to make there. But anyway, there's a bunch of bloody signings coming through in the last 7 days, basically, since we did the last podcast. So they already had about, I think, 11 dudes or so under contract. Since then, David Ball has signed on for 2 more years. He was already under contract for this year, but he's signed an extension, so that's pretty cool from an import player to be re-upping at a time when other import players, including the previous club captain, have had to leave because of circumstances. We've got Sam Sutton, the top player in the youth system, getting a 3-year deal, which is, big rewards for him. Tiarafai Hudson-Wehongi signed on for 2 more years, exactly what we needed. Liam McGing most recently as well. Sounded like he might leave, but there was confusion because there was a McGing trialing with the new MacArthur team. Turned out to be his brother Jake, not Liam. So Liam's ended up staying at the Phoenix, probably playing out of New South Wales at the start. Helps him as well because he can just live at home. He doesn't have to do the hotel quarantine thing. It's actually easier for him. Him and apparently his best buds with Cam Devlin as well, so that helps matters. There's a couple of defenders to chuck in there. Clayton Lewis has signed. This was a badly kept secret, but one of the better younger Kiwi players of the premiership level. He's getting to go. A Wellington native as well. James Mcgarry's back. He's signed on for another year. A year. Having been in the academy back in the day, left to go play professionally in Holland, come back now. Over lockdown. Joshua Laws is a Scottish-born Australian youth international, knows Ufi Talai from the Aussie grades coming up, and is a current teammate in that Aussie Olympic team with Reno Piscopo as well. So he's a tidy left-footed midfielder who's been playing in Germany for several years, trying to work his way up there at, I think it was Fortuna Dusseldorf. Never played for the first team, but played a lot for the reserves. Who can also play centre-back if needed, so also a bit more defensive depth. So suddenly, they're still gonna need to sign an import striker, and it sounds like there's a fella they got in line, used to play for Brighton. They're gonna need to sign probably an import centre-back as well to fill those out. The midfield's looking pretty good, though. You might, if they have a bit of money left over, they might be able to fill that last import spot, depending on the financials and whatever. Probably with a creative, like a winger, probably, someone who can provide some assists, maybe a few goals going forward. Other than that, things are looking pretty sorted. I was trying to work out where they were with youth players, because there's the thing of 3 players under the age of 21 that you got to have. But I think I'm pretty sure they've lifted that this season to 23 now. which means that goes from having 2 players out of 3 under contract to a whole bunch, because they had a bunch of dudes who were under 21 last year who have since turned 22. So like Devlin and who was McGing and fellas like that. So I think they're sorted from that matter. They can sign. They need a minimum of 20 players, so they're at 17. 2 more imports will take them to 19, so they'll need to sign 1 more, whether it's an import or a local. But I don't expect them to have a huge squad. The travel bubble to New South Wales suggests to me that if things got desperate, like they could bring over a reserve player and they wouldn't have to quarantine. They could go straight into training. They would have to quarantine coming back if nothing changes, but that's fine. You do that if you're a reserve player for the chance to play first team. Other than that, it sounds like we're getting pretty close. Like the players everyone who's under contract now is in the process of, if not already having done so, flying out to I think it's Wollongong for the base, for at least for preseason, for the start, the university there. So it's all slowly coming together. We'll see how they go in terms of preseason games and what kind of coverage and whatever we get there from that. But season starts the day after Boxing Day, the 27th of December. So the countdown's now officially on as far as the Wellington Phoenix goes, and we can start to see something close to what their first choice team's going to look like now, based on the players they got locked in.
So how are you observing or feeling their strategies with some of their recruitment for Wellington Phoenix? Like, in the context of maybe today's overall theme, but also specifically with the Wellington Phoenix, there's been like different trends that have emerged. Again, like the Warriors and any other team, different coach has different ideas, has a different style. Right now, it seems like there is it seems like the Wellington Phoenix are aligning themselves with the state of Kiwi football. Is that an accurate statement?
Pretty accurate. I mean, they've got 17 players under contract at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them are New Zealanders. So that's certainly a better proportion than we've had in recent times. And then even like the guys who aren't, they're not older Australian battlers or, whatever. You've got like Cameron Devlin, who's a really exciting young midfielder. You got Josh Laws, who hopefully be something similar. Liam McGing, Reno Piscopo, like Josh Soterio, I suppose, is 25. He's not that young as far as footballers go, but pretty like it's the same coach for one thing. For the first time in 3 years, they had the same coach coming back, so that helps. So there is consistency there. It's a similar kind of recruitment strategy as what they've been doing in recent times. There are a couple of players in the premiership levels who I would have, if he had like given us a little cheeky DM on Twitter or something, I would have suggested a few names that could be added to that mix. But I think just with the nature of this very, very weird season they're about to embark on, I think they probably want to keep things relatively tight knit with a small squad and have things like just as much crossover from last season to carry on the success that they had there into like the flow on into this year. And there's a few areas where they weren't able to do that, but Taylor leaving and a couple others, and McCowett, Kakache. But I think like McCowett and Kakache leaving, Clayton Lewis comes in for McCowett, can also play deeper, but I think at this level he's probably suited to playing a little further forward. I don't know. Or maybe in that Devere role. So if I'm Clayton Lewis going into training with Uli Devere this week, I'm like learning absolutely everything I possibly can from that dude, because I think that's as good a role model as he could ask for. And Mcgarry is the new Liberato Kakache Kiwi left back coming out of the academy, basically. Like he's not going to be as good as Kakache, because Kakache was a marvel, but he's as close to a straight replacement as they were going to get. It's just, I just think they're trying to keep it nice and consistent from last season as close as they can. A few players left that they would have preferred to keep, but so it goes. That's just that's the natural turnover of a professional sports squad season in, season out. And I think a lot in terms of their ceiling, in terms of like the upside of this season coming up, an enormous amount depends on at least basically the caliber of the imports they can get in. Whether they can get a striker who can score a whole bunch of goals as Hooper did, but also, unlike Hooper, play consistently, not have the injury struggles, then that would be enormous. Like, that's the biggest thing they could do to boost their chances. And then also getting a centre back who can repeat some of what Stephen Taylor was able to do, then that would also matter enormously. So I think the baseline in terms of like the Kiwi alignment is the same as it was last season. We're not going to see more of it because of lockdowns or anything like that. But yeah, in terms of this season, a lot basically depends on the caliber of the imports.